Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook, and as you can see this evening, I'm sitting at this table alone. But this isn't going to be a monologue tonight. Tonight, what we're doing is we're having a fantastic conversation with Dr. Richard DeAndrea, who happens to be located in Bangkok, Thailand. And today we're going to be talking about stem cell research, and some of the tremendous breakthroughs that are happening in this field. Dr. DeAndrea, welcome to Reference Point. It's a pleasure to have you here from 14 time zones away.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think it would be great to my practice if I could be in two places at once like this, all across the globe. That would be very nice. Yeah. I need assistance. If you want to send me more doctors, that would be fantastic.
There you go. Well, I want to talk a lot about what it is that you're doing and some of the breakthroughs you've had, but I kind of want to start from a very basic beginning perspective, because here for the last 10 or 15 years, we've been hearing about stem cells, stem cell research, stem cell therapies, et cetera, et cetera. But I have to admit that I have a little bit of a confusion, and I'm sure a lot of people have some confusion. Exactly what is a stem cell and where do you get them?
Well, you know, I was as confused as you, so I just want to give you some brief background on who I am and where I come from. I'm actually a physician who was trained in the United States at Cornell, New York Hospital. And my original training was in general surgery, and then I went into internal medicine. After internal medicine, I spent several years in the ICU trying to understand actually how the body functions. My feelings after that were that I really need to get a better handle on different views of treatment in medicine. At this point, I've studied traditional Chinese medicine, East Indian Ayurvedic medicine, oxygen therapies, drip therapies, injectable therapies, peptides, as well as many other treatment techniques. I've used meditation with my patients, yoga, many different things, hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, of which I have masters in as well. And my feelings of coming to stem cell were that I felt that the patients needed a way to regenerate their bodies because our drugs weren't working very well.
Right.
What stem cell therapy is overall is, if you could imagine, there are baby cells in your body, not embryos. We do not use embryos. There are baby cells in your body that actually can change into many different types of cells in your body. They can change into brain tissue, organ tissue. They can change into ligament tissue, skin tissue, fat tissue, blood vessels. They can change into almost anything. So we know that a stem cell taken from many different areas of the body can be used in the body to repair, regenerate tissue, correct form and function. So we've actually seen this result, and we've been regenerating people who have degenerative diseases, and we've actually been capable of turning back the clock and getting an edge on healing and giving them a new hope and a new outlook.
So these stem cells are actually something that are inherently part of my body. I mean, I've heard different things about people. Matter of fact, there was an item on the CBS News last week about someone that they did some work on, who they grew a new windpipe for this gentleman in about 3 or 4 days or something like that, and they took stem cells from bone marrow. Can you get stem cells from different places in the body? Does it have to be bone marrow, or did cells from different places in the body accomplish different things?
Well, let me give you an overview so that you completely understand what we mean by stem cells. Stem cells is a broad umbrella. Under this umbrella, you have different categories of stem cells. The original research with stem cells happened in something called xenotransplantation, or animal stem cells derived from animals. We don't, of course, use that, but some people have had breakthroughs in conditions like Down syndrome using these animal-derived stem cells. Then there are human-derived stem cells. Human-derived stem cells could be of two origins. Either they are of fetal origin or of adult origin. The fetal-derived stem cells are cord blood, placenta, or embryonic. Mm-hmm. Now, let me make a caveat here. We do not use embryonic stem cells because they turn into cancer. No doctor in his right mind would use embryonic stem cells because they turn into cancer. That is a political issue that is constantly used as a tool in order to margin against this. In a short period of time, what you will understand is that stem cells are causing the whole pharmaceutical industry to change. In the area of adult stem cells, there are adult stem cells which are derived from bone marrow, derived from organs, derived from different organ tissue. They can be derived from peripheral blood, like the blood that is in your arm, as well as from fat. And the stem cells that we have found that are in the highest quantity in the human body are not in bone marrow and not in the blood. They're actually in the fat right around your belly, right around your navel, called adipose fat tissue.
Ah, interesting. Okay. And so you can access that very easily then. And then, now, one of the things, you and I had a conversation before the show about some of the techniques that have been developed through your organization to stimulate the growth of stem cells and the viability of them and their efficacy, et cetera. So tell us a little bit about that, because this was very interesting to me and I think is a huge breakthrough.
Let me first start off by saying we do not use embryos. We do not use embryos. Maybe I have to say it 3 times. It will be said before the end of this. That would be erroneous. That is not relevant. It is not useful. It was only used for study.
Right.
Now, what we do in order to access these stem cells, and we have at least 6 patients today. I'm very busy in the OR. But what we do is we do a mini liposuction procedure. This can even be done by a dermatologist in his office. Orthopedic surgeons in the United States are doing this, one by the name of Dr. Parita. And basically, what we do is we do a mini liposuction. We take out approximately 50 to 100 cc's of fat from your abdomen. That fat we then place into a small bag with some normal saline. So you'll see a water level and a fat level. Mm-hmm. Fat will come to the top, water level will come to the bottom. We then place inside of that fat a little bit of lecithin, or a compound we have created, a proprietary ingredient which is lecithin, comes from soybeans, and that lecithin causes the fat to break down, and the stem cells in the fat fall into the water layer. Then we take those stem cells, separate them from the fat, and we take a little bit of your blood so that we could get a little bit of your plasma and your platelets. We add some calcium chloride to that. It causes the platelets to clot. The platelets force something into the serum called growth factors. All of this is from you going back into you. We then take the stem cells which we took from your fat, the serum which we took from your blood with the growth factors. We put them together, and then we place them under a laser light, an LED light of a certain frequencies of red, yellow, and green, which is again a proprietary technology. Because we place them under the laser light, we're able to activate the stem cells in the OR in the same procedure that day, and we're capable of putting them back into the bloodstream or using them in many different tissues in the body for injections into the joints as well as into the skin. Because we can activate the stem cells using a low laser light, we do not need to expand them or incubate them in a lab for 6 weeks. As a result of not needing to expand or incubate them in the lab for 6 weeks, we don't have to add the chemicals that are added by the people who are in bone marrow, peripheral blood, and other forms of stem cell therapy, cord blood, baby teeth. They use these for stem cells as well. But in order to expand them, meaning to grow the number of stem cells, they often have to add bovine stimulating factors, hormones to them, and then there are other chemicals and antibiotics that are added to them to make this effect happen. The reason why they need to expand them is because from any other source other than fat, they get a very small number. The very small number is somewhere between 1 to 2 million. We can, out of the same volume of fat as bone marrow, get 200 million at a minimum.
Wow.
As a result, I know there is a big wow there,
yeah,
because to reach a therapeutic dose effect for stem cells, you need 20 to 30 million. So they have to take, with other stem cell techniques, the stem cells out of the operating theater, move them to a lab, grow them for 6 weeks in order to get a therapeutic dose. Maybe they will get 30 million, and they get 1 dose. We are capable of getting 200 million. In my particular case, when they took my stem cells, they found 1 billion in my fat.
Wow.
This is no exaggeration. My partner had 657 million. Now, what this meant was we could take my stem cells, use 50 million for the condition that I had. I had a broken knee with some ligaments that tore off and a meniscus that was torn, and I wanted to inject them in my knee. And we took 50 million, injected them into my knee. We put another 50 million into my bloodstream. And then what we did is we took the rest of them and we put them in a stem cell bank. They're banked and held cryogenically. We have EU certified, US FDA, GMP, good manufacturing practice certified labs in Thailand. We have them in Greece. We have them in Europe. We have them in Australia. We store the stem cells, and now any time in my lifetime that I need those stem cells, I actually just call the lab. They send me them in a small 1 cc to 2 cc vial. I can ask for the exact number I need as a physician. and then I can actually apply them to different areas in my body, put them in my bloodstream, inject them, so forth and so on. So this technique is a dramatic breakthrough because it allows us to shorten the time, it allows us to make the price affordable, and it allows us to access care repeatedly.
Fantastic. Now, it sounds like there is a bit of a distinction between using the stem cells in the way that you talked about, injecting them into a particular location into the blood, and versus using them to grow body parts, like this gentleman on the news where they.
Okay, when we talk about the idea of growing body parts, this idea with the trachea, because the United States is not getting news, is actually old. At the University of Scotland, Edinburgh, they've already regrown a human kidney. We in our labs have regrown a human bladder. There are people who are now in the process of growing livers. Organs are being grown around the world. There is a company in actually Silicon Valley, or a little bit north of there, called Cytograft, which is actually growing blood vessels that are wider. We use these in the arm for renal dialysis, so that snake-like vein that you see on people who are getting renal dialysis doesn't have to appear anymore. That company is actually worth several $100 million now. We are regrowing tissue. We are regrowing ligaments. We are regrowing cartilage. We have done that in Petri dishes as well as in the human body. In fact, you will see an article in the New York Times on a pitcher by the name of Bartolo Colon, who had his ligaments and cartilage regrown in his rotator cuff tear. We did this in South Florida with him, as well as his sports doctor, Dr. Parita, and injected the stem cells directly in under fluoroscopy to his rotator cuff and his shoulder. In approximately 6 months, he pitched a shutout. His first pitch was 95 miles per hour. He's a New York Yankee, and he was 38 years old. So if there's any question whether or not this works, the next question would be to ask, why is it that Kobe Bryant is flying to get injectable therapies into his knees and into his back? Why is it that Madonna is using stem cell facelift by Dr. George Heinrich in Austria, Vienna, in which we're using the same exact technology, injecting stem cells under the skin with a needle down to the muscle core so we can regrow the muscle to actually cause a lift in the face without ever cutting her face.
Right.
That's the reason she could say, I've never had plastic surgery. That's because we don't need it anymore. We can inject these things. It can be used for other techniques. But in reality, you could even see Dr. Richard Ellenbogen in Los Angeles at Beverly Hills Body did a stem cell facelift on Fox News. We are getting these effects. We know that these effects work. This is happening worldwide. And there is no particular side effect or rejection when we take the stem cells from you and give them back to you.
Right.
We use an autologous allotransplanted technique of taking stem cells from you and returning them back to you. We do not use foreign cells. We do not use embryos. We do not use stem cells from somebody else.
Got it. So let me go back to trying to understand something in terms of timing on something that I still have a question in my mind. You mentioned that you have successfully grown another bladder, or human bladder, for transplant purposes, I assume, and that sort of thing. Is what kind of timeline does that take? That's obviously not something that's going to be able to happen in the one process like you identified you'd be able to do with the injectable stem cells into a particular circumstance. So is that a lengthy process, or is it actually fairly immediate?
Well, organ growth actually is shorter than regular growth in the body. We can do that in a shorter period of time because we can take a matrix of different types of stem cells and bring them together so that we can actually create a kind of a structure, a format that is a kind of like a foundation, and then build the stem cells around it. This can take sometimes to grow organs 6 months to a year. So that is not a very long period of time, but it can be done. The kidney took specifically 14 months. So because it takes a little bit longer period of time, as the technology advances, it should take a shorter period of time. The actual stem cell technique to give you your own stem cells, we can do that in less than 3 hours in the operating room. We do it under a local anesthesia procedure. We don't use general anesthesia. And actually, we're able to send patients home in the same day. It's an outpatient procedure.
How do you tell the stem cell what to do? How do they know?
That's a great, I'm glad you asked that question, because everybody asks that question, and doctors ask that question as well. We believe that the human body, being millions of years old, actually knows what it's doing, and that nature knows what it's doing. Even Paracelsus, the student of Plato, said, a doctor's job is to stand by and watch nature do the work. So in this case, what we do is we take your blood serum and your platelets, and in that serum, inside of your blood, you are sending out messages. which are called cytokines and chemokines. These are mediators. They're kind of like sticky notes that move through your bloodstream in the form of proteins, amino acids, enzymes. And as they move through your bloodstream, they're telling the stem cells, which you do have in your bloodstream, this is where you need to go. We need help over here. And then the stem cells move to that area because these cytokines and mediators tell them what to do. So that by simply taking your blood, like I said, I take 50 cc's of your blood before the operation, spinning it down in the centrifuge, I can separate the serum from the red blood cells, take the platelets, I cause the platelets to clot, and that forces all the growth factors from the platelets into your serum. Now, here's the important point. If you had an accident right now, let's say you got up from your desk exiting the show and bumped your knee, and you formed a bruise, well, something would have to be sent out into your tissue to tell the cells where to go to heal that bruise. Those are cytokine mediators. That goes into your bloodstream. So all of those flags, cytokines, mediators are actually in your blood waiting to be understood. Now, before we understood this, doctors were under the impression that we have 100 trillion cells in the body, like 100 trillion cells in an Olympic-size, 100 trillion cell tennis balls in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and somehow the cells just bump into each other randomly over a period of time, just know how to bump into each other. What we have determined is that they are talking to each other, and they talk to each other using these cytokines or mediators, proteins, peptides, enzymes, amino acids, and that these things move through the bloodstream along with the immune system in order to tell the body what to do and where to go to heal.
That's fantastic. That's a whole, I had no idea. I mean, that's actually very, that's actually, to hear that though, actually is, I hear that and I go, wow, this is actually not just cool, but it makes a lot of sense, and it's comforting to know. I mean, I've had some experience in working with people who have substance abuses, and you know, the program that we were involved with did a lot with nutritional activity and some supplements and exercise and whatever to help them. But I've seen the body repair itself from tremendous abuses from these types of substances, and it's just phenomenal. So this is what you're telling me makes a lot of sense to me, and it's very exciting. I do have a question. I want to ask you about the Global Stem Cell Network, because this is something that your organization has been facilitating to help, as I understand it, make the technology that has been developed, the proprietary technology that you've developed, more available on a broader scale. Is that correct?
Yes. Our website is globalstemcells.com, cells, C-E-L-L-S, globalstemcells.com. I have trained 60 physicians. Actually, by this weekend, it will be 64 physicians in 28 countries. Right now, I've trained 60 physicians in 24 countries. What we have done is we've set up a network of physicians around the globe. Many of them are 6 are in the United States, 6 are in Europe. There are some in China, Singapore, Malaysia. There will be some in India, Romania, Germany, Spain, and the list goes on. We have trained about 10 here in Thailand. And the object of this was to create a network of physicians in which we can share information and keep them up to date and give them more advanced technologies as we develop more, because our research facilities are multi-million-dollar facilities in Australia. And what we have developed is a network in which if a patient is in any part of the world, they would just go to our website, contact us. We would find a physician we have trained, certified, who knows the procedure, is producing results without rejection, without side effect. They share all of our data with us. We have followed all the patients that we have treated over the course of the last 9 years. This is almost close to 4,000 now. With the rest of these physicians, we collect the data with them. We have actually published studies with them, with the US FDA, with the Greek FDA, with the Australian FDA, and now we're going to be with the UK FDA. And what we actually do is if a patient, let's say, is in Romania, and they want to find a physician who is trained, and let's say the closest physician is in Austria, I also know that there is another physician in Latvia. I can call the physician in Austria and say, how much will you give this patient their stem cells for? He may say, I'll do it for 16,000 US. I'll call the physician in Latvia and say, the person in Austria says he will do it for 16. How much will you do it for? The guy in Latvia says, I'll do it for 13. Then I go back to the guy in Austria and he says he'll do it for 13. How much will you do it for? Because I know where the price points, where they're making money. And he says, okay, I'll do it for 12.5. Then I call the patient back and I say, I think you should go to Austria. With the plane flight and the care, you'll pay less than going to Latvia. So what I do is I price pitch the doctors against each other. I know they're making money. I want to see this go around the world. It will go around the world. I've seen the effects of it. And I want to make sure the patients get the best possible care at the most affordable price. I moved here to Thailand because we have very advanced hospitals here. I have the company of the king, meaning that the king supports what we do here in this country. We have a bank here, and in addition, I can make it the lowest price on the planet, for fact. So that if somebody has financial issues or needs to get these resources, they need to contact me here, and then we find a way to make sure that they get that technique done at the cheapest and most affordable price. So the network is meant to use the internet, use networks, in order to make sure that people are getting the highest standard of care at the most affordable price.
That's fantastic. I want to let the audience know that if they have any questions for Dr. DeAndrea, then you can go up to the website that he mentioned, but you can also send them through us here at info@referencepointtv.com, and we'll make sure to get those questions and information to him. Doctor, I want to ask you another question here. We do see information oftentimes on the internet, sometimes on late night TV shows where people are talking about there's this wonderful thing, the stem cell therapy. I saw one on TV 2 nights ago, some sort of topical cream supposedly with stem cells to help improve, the facial conditions, to reduce aging and whatnot. How do you know, as a layperson, what do you need to do? How do you know whether what you're hearing and seeing is for real?
Well, if I took any cell out of your body and I put it on your face, it would die. They have to be put into the medium they came from. That makes absolutely no sense unless somehow those cells are going through the skin themselves. And then separately, those stem cells would be coming from a foreign organism, which I do not agree with. And I don't think that anybody's putting stem cells in a cream, because stem cells cannot be held in a cream and stay alive. They are cells. They're like, that would be similar to putting your baby inside of petroleum and then deciding to spread it on the sidewalk outside and leave it there without food and let it live.
Right.
That's not going to happen. And of course, because the concept of stem cell will become very popular, there are going to be some people who will capitalize on this in order to cause more political controversy, more FDA controversy inside the United States, to create more laws so that you have less access, less research, and less development.
And I understand that. And that's the kind of the point here. The key is what, as a layperson, the concepts and the potential for stem cell therapies is so phenomenal. And I think a lot of people are beginning to understand that. The question is, what should I do as a layperson to make sure that I'm getting honest information and not some sort of marketing hype? Because a lot of people are going to try to abuse technologies and informations, and that's just part of the program. It happens in every industry. So what would be your recommendation to someone who really wants to understand and look for truth?
This is what I would do for my mother. I would call the company or call the organization. I would ask to speak to the physician. After speaking to the physician, I would ask for any research or documentation on anything that is in the literature that has been published. And then I would ask for any clinical information that you may have on patients you've already treated. And then I would also ask, can I speak to a former patient of yours, so that I could know that everything went well? So that this way you know that you're speaking to an actual physician. If a physician does not have time to talk to you, to give you a stem cell therapy, then you probably should not be doing it. And you should probably ask your own physician about it as well. I make sure that any patient that comes here, I ask to speak to the primary care doctor. Whether the patient comes from Europe, the United States, Thailand, or East Bonga Squeegee, doesn't matter to me. I want to speak to their doctor. I want to know what's going on with them. I want to have communication with him so that I can explain to him that when the patient comes back, we can bank the cells and send them to you, and this is the way you'll proceed with the next step. So that if he asks me questions, then he can speak directly with his patient and tell them, I've spoken to this guy. This all sounds real. He sent me the information. I think we should give it a shot right now. I'm actually in conversation with the people, the managers from Montel Williams. I've sent across every single piece of data on MS that we have, We treated 9 MS patients. They're all in remission. I'm going to speak to his physician soon. He's been vetting me. You've heard that word many times before. Vet out the process. Make sure that you're getting the right people. I will make sure if the patient cannot travel, that we find somebody close to home for you to talk to. You need to talk to real people. We can't just continually accept that what we're being told is true, because we're not really getting news in the United States. This is news. We are the news.
Exactly. That's sort of what I was hoping you were going to say. I appreciate that. Now, we're running close to, well, pretty much we're out of time. We have about 1 minute left before we have to wrap up. So, have any final comments or thoughts that you'd like to convey to us?
I've been a physician who's been practicing for 17 years now. And I think the one thing I've always searched for since I was a little kid, I always heard this idea that we have the power to heal ourselves, or the healing is within. And I would say it is 100% fact, scientific evidence, 100% proven. And I'd like you to test me. Call me. Let's have some conversations. Let's talk. Let's just talk.
Fantastic.
Have a great day, guys.
Dr. DeAndrea, thank you very much for joining us here at Reference Point. Very much appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching out there. Fantastic information. Again, send us those questions and queries. Check out this data, because this could be a life changer. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on Reference Point.
Thank you so much. Thank you.